An art journal is an informal place to collect your thoughts and ideas and to experiment with compositions without the commitment of attacking really expensive canvas or materials. And so an art journal is usually informal, it's not finished work, and it's usually done with media that are portable so that you can make notes anywhere you go. I mean, if you watch vampire movies, the most interesting characters have journals that have all kinds of little drawings in them and things like that. I tend to use smaller books for art journals because I like to have them with me. I've tried things like Evernote and drawing on an iPad, but there's really nothing like paper. And the point of the art journal assignment is to give you an idea of what it's like to be an artist collecting ideas that you might develop later into a finished artwork without worrying about completing it at this stage. Sometimes they will consolidate. Several different things will come together into one painting or one edition of prints. Most artists don't like facing a blank canvas, and so they start out with a journal to develop ideas. These are very old. These are just drawn with a number 2 pencil. And this is before I started my formal training. Homage to Escher. And it's typical for people when they're starting out to make drawings that are very tight, trying to make finished work. And one of the hardest things to do is to get people to loosen up. And that's one of the reasons you use inexpensive materials and experiment. Here's a sketch done from a painting. Sometimes you can go to a museum and they'll allow you to draw, although they don't usually like wet medium. And these actually were studies for semi-abstract paintings that I did in the past. And I like to work on a toned paper. I was talking to Richard Diebenkorn years ago, and he didn't like starting out on a clean white piece of paper. He said he felt he needed to violate it in some way. For me, I just wanted to give it a texture of some kind. It just felt too mechanical, just drawing straight on bright white. This is interesting. I wanted an animation stem when I started out working in 16 millimeter, but I couldn't afford one. But I could afford plywood. So this was part of my plan to develop a plywood animation stand. And then I was trying to make white ink work. And it's very difficult to get white ink to flow. I used a very large technical pen, and you can see that it was skipping and jamming a lot. But I wanted to do it for a trip to Leningrad because I wanted to be able to do highlighting on toned paper without any open colors, like dishes of color or anything like that, because they wouldn't allow that in the museum. Another study for a painting, because even with a non-objective painting, it's hard to just start out on a canvas. And these were tests for linoleum block prints before I went to the good paper. So that's the beauty of an art journal, is that you can just test things and not worry so much about the cost or whether or not someone's going to judge a finished product, because it's just for you. A plan for a portable sketch system. More toned paper. Some figure drawing workshops. Sometimes after work I go over to the Art Directors Guild, where they have a model for 3 hours for $10. So it's a great way to keep your drawing skills going. Remember we talked about contour drawing? This is a blind contour drawing where you don't look at the paper, you look at the model only, and only glance at the paper once in a while. So you're just trying to follow the contours of the model. He's just playing with a calligraphy pen. I'm sure you've seen the chisel tip pens. If you haven't, they're a lot of fun. A storyboard for a little effects film that I was doing when I was at Mills College. One of my favorite objects was my movie camera. So there was a little thumbnail drawing of the movie camera. It's funny because Jay DeFeo got a grant and bought a beautiful Hasselblad camera and then ended up drawing the camera. She did take good pictures with it, but she liked it as an object, so she drew it a lot. A little setup for a glass map painting. That's how it was done before digital. You painted on a piece of glass and rear projected the live action. What I'm doing now doesn't involve film at all. And there's the base for the animation stand, the camera, working things out, restating a line. See how I scribbled out one line? That's why I like drawing in ink, because stopping to erase breaks your flow, ruins the train of thought. It's generally not a good idea to stop and erase and try and make a perfect drawing the first time. And there was the animation stand final idea with window cranks. And that's how Disney did it for years. They called them downshooters. And it's just got all kinds of notes. Another object I liked was the etching press at Berkeley. An 1800s cast iron press, which is now in a museum, which is probably where I should be. But it was a beautiful machine. One of my favorite Swedish illustrators is Jan Bauer, so I was inspired by the way he painted the birch forests and the reflections. Little bits and pieces. A helmet I saw at the Army Museum in Sweden. And the camera with a counterweight so you can move it back and mount it at the node. So you can pan on a painting without parallax, which is beyond the scope of this class, but you see how just a sketchbook kind of helps you bring these things to life and remember what you were planning on. Different ideas for logos. Dragon oriented. Based on a pet monitor lizard I used to have.